Hello, everyone. It is Minute Plus Meditation here, Friday, June the 14th. From the first reading, we are still going through 1 Kings, and now we're in chapter 19. So God tells Elijah to go up to Mount Horeb, and I'll pick up at this point in the reading. Now there was a great wind so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave, and so on. So you got to read this. It's a very profound reading. It's an encounter Elijah has with God. We know that God is quite capable of being in the powerful wind. Fire, certainly he spoke to Moses through fire, and even he's quite capable of also speaking through the earthquake as well. But in this case, God manifests himself to Elijah through this sound of sheer silence. Then there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He said, "I've been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken the covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets in the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking to take my life." And then God reassures him that, "No, I have left 7,000 who have not bent the knee to Baal." And so, and then he talks about the successor of Elijah. Okay, the sound of sheer silence. There's many ways this can be sort of unpacked or understood or reflected on. But many times we do look for God in the momentous occasions of life. I don't know, maybe it's, I'll be, levitation. It could be earthquakes. It could be volcanoes. It could be also thunderstorms. We just think of something spectacular, like almost special effects. When God frequently makes himself known to us in things that are almost imperceptible if we're not paying attention. All right, we've got to pay attention. We've got to be alert. We've got to be intentional. We've got to be properly disposed to sense God on his own terms. And frequently, God speaks to us through a formed conscience. Like, why does God have to appear to me and speak to me? Like, am I that sort of special? I'm special enough that Jesus Christ would die on the cross for me. So we are special, right? But why does God have to appear to me at my whim, at my sort of beckoning? He appears to me through a formed conscience. The teaching of sacred scripture, God still speaks through sacred scripture. God speaks through the teaching of the church. God speaks through, the teaching of the church encompasses a lot of things. So he still speaks through this. So why should he have to appear to me? If I form my conscience properly, God will speak through a formed conscience. And most of my moral decisions will be actually pretty clear. The difficulty we have sometimes is, should I buy this house? Should I, get this thing? Or should I date this girl? Or, this kind of stuff. Well, then you have to or should I go to this university or that university? We have to sometimes write down, well, what's my bank account like? Is it going to support a new house? What's this person like? Do they, not that we want a list of a perfect person because that doesn't exist in this world, but, is this person going to support me? Are they respectful? Are they going to share my ideals, my spiritual values, and so on? So, there are some basic questions that if we honestly asked ourselves, things might become a whole lot clearer, and God will speak through these things. So pay attention to this. Sometimes it's good to write down a list of do's and don'ts so that things are obvious, right? And then scripture, teaching of the church, and so on. Okay, over to the gospel. We continue through the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said to his disciples, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out," and so on and so on. So, to use an expression, Jesus drills down. All right? So, he basically talks about interior purification, interior rectitude, uprightness of heart. And the thing is, if we do not give God, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago in a Sunday sermon, If we do not give God 100% of our heart, then something's going to get in. Right? If we do not seal all the cracks off in our building, water's going to get in. Right? If you can control water as a contractor, you're going to make a lot of money. Because water is the most difficult thing to control as a contractor. Water gets in everywhere. Well, an open door, somebody can put their foot into it. An open heart, the evil one can breathe all sorts of temptations. We got to give our whole heart. And sometimes our fears come up and we don't want to do that. Well, we have to identify those and frankly, brutally crucify them. Allow Jesus to take them and nail them to the cross, our fears of him. And what's on the other side of giving Christ everything, 100% of our heart. So, but until we do that, we're going to have tension, we're going to have waffling, we're going to have all sorts of problems that are not necessary. Okay, so really, really think about this. 100%. God bless you.